From Wacko Chaco Studio, I am Ashwin Chaco, and this is The Fruitful Life, a show about the business of creativity and the stories behind the creators that have made their dreams a reality. Hey, folks, welcome to The Fruitful Life, Jim Field. Hey, Jim.
Hey Ashwin, thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for joining us. So, for our guests who might not know you, can you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, my name is Jim Field. You might guess that. And I am an illustrator predominantly for children's books these days. I used to work in animation in a previous life, which we might get into as well in the discussion. So yeah, now I'm known more for illustrating children's books. Work a lot with the author Rachel Bright. We've done a series of books, The Lion Inside, The Koala Who Could, Squirrel Who Squabbled. I've worked regularly with Kes Gray as well on the Oi Frog series, and also on a Rabbit and Bear series with Julian Goff, which is slightly older children. So yeah, I work regularly with these authors, and also do some authoring myself on a series of books called Michel Roscoe, which is inspired by raising our daughter bilingual here in France. So that's me in a nutshell.
That's very cool. And I'm looking forward to diving into all those different aspects. But before we do, the first question I like to ask all my guests is if you could be a fruit, what fruit would it be and why?
I've seen you ask this, and a lot of people. My first thought was a banana, and I said a lot
Right,
of people have been a banana. But I think banana is just the ultimate fruit. It's like
right.
it's portable. You know, it comes in its own packaging. You can literally open it up anywhere. It's full of really good nutrients, potassium and magnesium, B6, vitamin. And also the great thing with a banana is it's really nice to write on with a biro. Have you ever written on the biro? It's like, I don't know what other fruit you can write on. So yeah, I think banana. And then if it's a load of illustrators, we can just sort of hang out in a big bunch on the tree, you know, and it's I'm gonna imagine a nice tropical view on the beach. So yeah, I wanna be somewhere nice with a nice view, high up in a tree. So yeah, I'll be a banana.
Slowly. Yeah. I think a lot of illustrators seem to gravitate towards it because I guess it's so whimsical fruit and it's got all those like great attributes as well.
Yeah, it's funny. It's yellow. Yellow's a great happy color as well, isn't it? So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll go with a
So
banana.
I was curious when you look back at your childhood, were you always a creative kid? I mean, like what drove you down the illustrative path that you are on today?
Yeah, I mean, I was drawing from as young as I can remember, and I love drawing. I used to go to the library with my grandfather a lot, and we used to get rent books out from library, and I would make my own little books, like sort of staple them together and draw in my favorite characters like like Willow and the Wisp. I don't know if you know that, and Tom and Jerry, Thomas the
Yeah.
Tank Engine, Jimbo the Jet Set. So I grew up in the 80s. So there's this sort of influence of TV as well. Like I loved cartoons,
Yeah.
and it was quite strange because from a very young age, I always knew I wanted to be an animator.
Mm.
I just like I was obsessed with like I mean I wasn't stuck to the TV all the time. I mean, but I love like if ever whenever there's like a Tom and Jerry cartoon or a Warner Brothers cartoon coming on, my family would say, Jimmy, cartoons are on. Like run in and like you get like maybe two or three on a Sunday, and you're
Yeah.
like that was a lot, like 15 minutes of cartoon. So I, from a very young age, the characters just drew me, like Richard
Mm.
Scarry characters. I can remember that vividly. Like there's a page in a spread of one of the books with all these like different trucks, like a mustard truck, a ketchup cup truck, and they all kind of like crashed together. But there was so much like detail and so much to look at and so much character and so much humor. I remember, and it was weird because I hadn't seen that book for years and years, and then I came across it when I was researching for Mission Roscoe, and it sort of was like, whoa, this sort of weird flashback of
Yeah,
how
yeah.
that impacted my childhood. And
Mm,
yeah, it's all these things you carry through from a very young age. So yeah, drawing is always a huge part. And I was a very quiet child, and I'm still pretty timid and quiet, to be honest. And I kind of found my voice through drawing. Um, so like in the first year of school, primary school, it's quite a big primary school. It's like primary and junior mixed
yeah,
together. And there was a competition to design the summer fair poster, and
nice.
I won it, which was crazy. I drew like this band, there's three people in the band, and I remember the guy playing the piano had this sort of leg that did this sort of like triple jointed leg, like stomping along to the piano. Like, and so that one, and I was like, oh, like I think that sort of opened up the eyes to my parents. Oh, he maybe he's quite good at this, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I carried on drawing. Anyway, we go into the so yeah, from a very early age, I love drawing and characters, and yeah, books and cartoons was a big influence on my childhood.
So once you came out of your childhood, like after high school, what career path did you decide on? I mean, did you know that you said you wanted to be an animator. Did you pursue studying animation then, or was it illustration? What
Yeah,
direction did you end up going?
yeah, I pursued animation, and I was very lucky when I was still at high school. I got a placement in a like a work experience. I don't know if you.
Right,
And so I managed to find this studio, animation studio in Covent Garden in London. They're called Animation People. I was only like 14 or 15 at the time. And they specialize in 2D animation, like making a lot of commercials and sort of TV intros and things. And I was there for 2 weeks, and it's fascinating. It was amazing. It just like secured what I wanted to do. It's like this is like the proper artists, you know, people working on the back, just like background artists. There was some
mm.
painting the cells, you know, like
Yeah, yeah,
just crazy amount of work, and they let me just like kind of do like line tests just for myself, and I learned a lot. And they gave me like a sort of book of like basics of animation. So I was like starting off with like a bouncing ball, then
yeah.
like the flag waving loop, and then like walk cycles. By the end, I you know quite a lot of like animation I had done by the end of it. So I carried on. I went to sixth form college. I studied graphic design,
Mm.
media studies, and maths because for some reason I thought I wanted to keep challenging my brain. That was like, I keep, but it was a terrible decision. And I kind of wish I did fine art, but I never thought I didn't think I was good enough to be in the fine art because I saw like,
Right.
I'm not that good. So anyway, I then went on to study animation in Hull. Actually, it was called when I joined, it was called the Hull School of Art and Design, but
Right.
it sort of merged with Lincoln University by the end. And so yeah, I studied animation, Bachelor of Arts in Animation. And funnily enough, that's where on the first day I met another illustrator, author, Benji Davies.
Oh, okay.
You
Yeah,
might
yeah.
know as well. So like, yeah, we were both queuing up for the union, I think, or something on the first day. And oh, what are you doing? Oh, animation. All right. And we became good friends like straight away. And yeah, like he was a super talented artist. He still is a super talented artist. And um, so after university, I don't know. We going into that deep now? Or we
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, okay.
Go
So
for it.
yeah, I studied animation for 3 years. I also had quite a challenge during the animation course. I just finished making my final film, which is
Right.
something to work on for like 3 months or something. And I'd been going into university solidly for like 2, 3 months, sort of composited and all, because it was all like 2D drawn and then composited. And this is like back in the days, you know, like you had to back it up on a CD. and
Yeah.
he didn't have enough money really to put it on afford a zip drive because that was a
Yeah.
lot
Yeah.
of money. And it was like 13 gig of data.
Oh
So
my
that's
gosh.
a lot of CDs. So I was like, I can't back this up. So I didn't go in for like 2 days, I think. And I went in with my sound designer, and the technician had erased my entire film
Oh my
2 weeks
gosh.
before the end of the course. And
Jeez.
so I had, pretty much a kind of breakdown. And my dad was amazing. He drove up like the next day because we grew up, my parents lived down in the south of the UK in Hampshire. And he drove up the next morning all the way to sort of try and help me and sort of negotiate with the tutors. So I had basically 2 weeks to recomposite
Oh my gosh.
my entire film. As I was coming in at 5, leaving at like 12. And I did it. It nearly killed me, but I did it and I got first. And then I was like, all right, I come out and I get a job in animation. It
Right.
was it wasn't like that. I like sent my material out. I got so much rejection, so many rejection letters. And I was like, shit, what am I going to do? I was back living at home. My parents live in a town called Farnborough. It's quite
Okay.
suburbs of London, and I couldn't get any work there. Basically, I was like, nobody would take me on. Like just even like in the supermarket, I was looking for anything to get money. And I was also in the downtime. I was working on my portfolio, just like
Right.
trying to learn Photoshop more and more. So this is early 2000s, and I just got like a Wacom Intuos, and that's
Yeah.
sort of opened up a whole new world as well. And so I was experimenting trying different styles. And I joined an illustration collective called Monsters. It was like a group of illustrators based in London.
Right.
And we would kind of share uh, information with each other, like how you price jobs.
Hmm.
We'd do like mail outs to art directors together to spread the
Yeah.
cost. We did like postcards or things. And that was really sort of the beginning of my illustration career. And then I was also working as an animator. I got a job with animating a short documentary for Channel 4
Okay.
uh, with, they used to have the 3 minute segment after the Channel 4 news. It
Yeah.
was called 3 Minute Wonder. And I worked on a film for like mental health with a documentary filmmakers group with this director called Andy Glynn, who was also like a doctor in psychology. And so we interviewed somebody who suffered from panic attack and agoraphobia.
Hmm.
And Andy cut it into like a 3 minute sequence of audio, and I basically animated and came up with this visual. And there was 4 films in the series, and I worked on that like pretty solidly for hardly any money, basically. I was just taking anything I could. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
my parents are like, they were supportive, but like, you need to find some money as well. You need to get
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
income. And I was lucky because my dad used to be a graphic designer, and he had a studio which he wasn't using behind the garage, so I kind of set up in there.
Right.
Uh, so I was like, yeah, sort of using that as my sort of space to develop an experiment. And then I started to, just try to get what work I could, really. It's really, really difficult. And I end up back working in Millets, the camping shop. Finally
Right.
got a place there on a really terrible salary. And I remember I got a pay rise of 13 pence. I was made like the sort of deputy manager, and it was depressing. It was a pretty depressing time. I've been like living at home for like a year and a half or something. And then I got a phone call from Passion Pictures, the animation studio.
Right.
Said, "Oh, we got 2 weeks of work on a animated documentary. Are you interested?" It's like, yes.
Mhm. Yeah.
Literally, came down the camp like in minutes. I was like, kiss my face, I'm out of here. I was like, I walked that day. I was like, I left. I went moved to stay with a friend in London. I was like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to find a way to make this
Yeah.
work in London. I was like, I'm not going back to Farnborough. I can't do it. Yeah, I moved in with a friend in Camberwell for a couple of weeks, and yeah, did this sort of couple of weeks of animation experience. And completely, by the way, sorry, Passion Pictures, but I totally bluffed my way through it. It was like, oh, do you know like CG? I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, I looked at it, and then I was like, right. So then I had like 2 weeks to kind of create this sort of abstract animated world. It was
Yeah.
for a film called Black Sun, which is a documentary by a director called Gary Tarn, I think. And it was about this artist, this painter artist, who lived in New York, and he lost his sight. And so it's about how he kind of sees the world now. So it's quite sort of,
Mm.
it's a really beautiful film. And so I was sort of given a minute of animation to create for this documentary in CG. Sort of imagine kind of like a sort of blueprint sequence.
Right.
I was like using like sort of light wave to create sort of models and just sort of it's very simple, just sort of moving through a city.
Mm.
So I just sort of blagged my way through that for 2 weeks and like, how do we do this? How do you do this? And then yeah, I started after that dried up. I was getting bits and pieces for illustration work as well for like newspapers and magazines for like The Guardian.
So just at this stage, you hadn't really seriously considered illustration as yet as a career point. You were still looking for animation as your sole career,
Yeah,
and illustration was kind of like the fill in the gaps between
yeah,
projects,
yeah,
right?
exactly. Kind of like the little bits I could, like to
Yeah,
follow the dream to be an animator, really, an animation director. And I was getting a bit more illustration work, but nothing regular. And
yeah,
like commissions on like newspaper and magazine is like £100, £150 max normally.
yeah, yeah,
It's not very much. It's very, very quick turnaround. Sometimes I had like 4 hours. And I remember one time for piece for the Independent, and the internet stopped working at the house. I was like pegging it down to the internet cafe, legging it back, like and you did this before. I had like 4G or 3G on my
yeah,
phone.
yeah.
It was like early 2000s. And then I started to like Benji and I started to help each other basically, sort of like
Right.
with contacts. And so I did another film for the same documentary filmmakers group,
Yeah.
and Benji sort of worked on another one with that as well. And then what kind of was the break was a music video for a band called Camera. And
Okay.
it was a friend of mine called Paul Rains who kind of got the commission. And this was a budget of £200 to create a music video.
Oh
And
wow.
we're like, well, Benji and I were like, well, let's go for it. Let's
Yeah.
really go for it. And so we kind of worked on it on and off for 6 months.
Okay.
Obviously, like we're trying to make money wherever else we could at the same time. And that was really what changed our career. That managed to get nominated in the British Animation Awards in the music video category, and we're up against Franz Ferdinand,
Oh wow.
Gorillaz, and I think something else. So like, we stood no chance. Like we got paid £66 each for like 6 months' work. So like £11 a month. Like it's like salary from 1920.
Yeah.
And so it was hard graft. It was really, we busted our asses to try and do it. And it didn't win in the British Animation Awards, not
Right.
surprisingly. But it got us representation by Partisan Studios, which is an animation studio based in Soho at the time. And so Benji and I kind of came together. We formed an animation studio called Freighter, like
Okay.
a Latin for brother. And we we were kind of like living our dream then, basically. Our first pitch was to create a campaign for Waterstone's books, which is
Oh,
really
wow.
strange.
Yeah.
A Christmas campaign. So we kind of were pitching for this. We worked, we did loads of character designs and options and managed to win. This is 2006, I think. And then it was like, okay, what equipment do you guys want? And this is like, like dream, like, oh, we have a G5, we get the new Wacom Cintiq. And we had our own studio room in
Yeah.
Soho. It was Ashwin, it was like dream. We were like proper pinch ourselves. We were like, we're also like very imposter syndrome. Like
Right. Yeah.
what are these like young guys doing here? Like we got sort of traditional animator. We knew, but he didn't really know us. A guy
Yeah.
called Randy Edwards, who was like did this beautiful 2D traditional animation, and we had a couple of other sort of artists with us, illustrators. And so we just, yeah, we worked on 4 commercials for Waterstones over, I don't know, 4 or 5 months or so. And yeah, that was kind of the start of our animation directing career. And then, yeah, things picked up and we worked we worked on a campaign for Sainsbury's, which was another imposter syndrome, like directing Jamie Oliver. You know what I mean? It was like really surreal. And yeah, we did music videos and viral, all sorts of bits and pieces, basically.
Yeah.
And also sort of working on the side as illustrators as well.
Right.
Yeah, and then the recession hit in 2008, 2009, and afterwards it became very hard to get work.
Right.
Everyone was kind of pitching for one job. And in 2010, 2011, like Benji said, I can't carry on like this. I'm going to
Yeah.
focus on children's books. And I was like, shit, what am I going to do? This is quite hard. And I was kind of had started in the children's book world as well.
Mm.
I did a first fiction series called Attack of the Bum Biting Sharks,
Right.
published by an imprint of Macmillan. And then that got closed down after the recession. And it was different. Right, financially, it was really. I was really struggling.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I think I was on like 11 grand a year. Like really hard times. And I went to the leaving party of the art director of that book,
Yeah.
and I met Chris Innes, who is and still is the head of children's books at Macmillan.
Right.
And I said, "Can I come in?" I'd had a couple of drinks, to be fair. I said, "Can I come in and show you my portfolio?"
Yeah.
And he said, "Yeah, come in a couple of weeks." And I didn't have a children's book portfolio.
Right.
I spent 2 weeks trying to get something together, working different characters, different styles, and bits and pieces. So I went in and I showed him, and he liked it. And he said, "Okay, well, I've got this text, which is by an author called Peter Bentley. He's a really fantastic children's book author." And I didn't know the children's book world at all, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this text at the time was called "The Great Cat Haddock Scam," which was later to become Cats Ahoy. And so I did some character concepts for that, and they liked it. And I said, "Look, would you like to illustrate the book?" I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." I had nothing else on, like no
Yeah.
other work. And so I worked on this book solidly for 6 months, like solid, at least 6 months. And to my complete amazement, it got shortlisted for the Roald Dahl Funny Prize
Oh, brilliant. Yeah.
in 2011. And at the time, I didn't have an agent. I was still sort of in this illustration collective, but was no agent. And this agent had contacted me called Jodie Hodges, who was the agent of Peter Bentley. So she'd seen what I'd done for the book,
Yeah.
the art for the book and asked if I wanted representation. Like, no, no, because I don't really want to go into children's books. It's just a thing I'm doing now. And then, amazingly, we won the award.
Right.
And it was, yeah, like this is imposter syndrome overload. As Terry Jones from Monty Python sat in the row in front of me.
Oh, wow.
I didn't really know anybody else. I was completely out. I was like rabbit in the headlight. And then we won, and we're on the stage, and like Peter was doing like a sort of acceptance speech, and I'm just like walking away, like my mouth was so dry. I was like, please don't ask me to speak, because I couldn't speak. Not possible to speak. So luckily, yeah, nobody said anything. And so yeah, then after that, we like Jodie said to me, well, if you want, she was completely chilled and like not, just, if you want representation or you want to have a chat, to come in with your portfolio and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. And then offers start to come in for other children's books, and I started to launch into those on my own. And
Right.
then I realized I do need representation if I'm going to sort of to know if this is a good deal. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
if so yeah. So then, yeah, Cats Ahoy. I did 2 more books with Peter Bentley afterwards. I did,
Yeah.
and then Oil Frog came along. So this was thanks to Emma Layfield, who was
Yeah.
the editor. Uh, at the time, she was the editor in chief of children's books at Hodder, and she'd seen this little drawing I'd done of a frog on my website. And this was even, I think this was even before, like, Cats Ahoy had won the Roald Dahl Funny Prize. And she asked me to come in and said, oh, I've got this text by Kes Gray. And it was quite, I remember reading it, I was like, wow, this is quite strange. And it's very different to Cats Ahoy. And I was like, I don't know how to approach this at first. And then, basically I did like some character concepts for that. And they really liked it. It was a really one and only time I drew this frog on the log, and I did like this speech bubble and inverted it and just stuck it on a yellow background. There was
Right.
not, and they said, yeah, that's the cover. I'm like, what? Like just that? That has never, ever, ever happened after. They're like,
Yeah. Yeah.
they saw it straight away. The character didn't really change at all. It didn't change
Right.
at all.
Yeah.
And I've never had that again or since. But the cat took a long time. So anyway, Oi Frog did well, but it was a very, very slow burner.
Mm.
I remember going into Waterstones like a few months after it published, and they didn't have a copy of it at all.
Right.
And it was all through word of mouth, through teachers and bloggers, because they realized it was great to read aloud to
Right.
children, great for children to pick up rhymes from it.
Mm.
And so, yeah, the series that book just started to sell really well, and then my career started to change. To be honest, yeah, and more offers came in, and Jodie was there, just sort of like being the amazing superwoman she was, just like, okay, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? Like, and just like completely being in my corner and to help guide me to where I wanted to go, basically. So, yeah, and here we are. I don't know, what, 14 years later, I guess. So, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That's really nice to hear the story behind, the success and stuff like that. But I wanted to go back a second and, you were like really struggling in your creative career in animation, in illustration early on, um, living on 11,000 a year, which is really hard. What kept you motivated to push through those hard times? Because like a lot of young illustrators today will give up when they start facing these barriers. So what kept you going? What words of encouragement would you give to somebody in the same position you were in?
Mm. Well, I was working. The only other job I had supporting me was I was working in a, I mean, it might have been before. I don't know. Yeah, just it's really hard when those times come.
Yeah.
It's believe in yourself, I think, but also it's very important to cast your net very wide.
Mm.
If you want to be a children's book illustrator, don't just focus on that. Like I was taking on any jobs I could, like
Yeah.
any editorial bits and pieces I could, anything to try and it's all great experience.
Mm.
Um, I think it's great to have those experiences in a diverse area of design and creativity,
Yeah.
and that also makes you understand different aspects of the design world and for you to develop stronger. And so I think, yeah, keep your net wide.
Mm.
And early on, I think I had connections with like the Neville Brody graphic design studio because I knew some people who worked there. And he always said, say yes to every project.
Yeah.
So when you're beginning out, you've got to say, try and, as long as don't do anything for free ever.
Yeah.
Don't ever do anything for free because that undervalues you, undervalues the whole industry.
Mm.
So I mean, I had so many job like offers of like, oh, we can credit you for this. Like, fuck you, I'm not doing anything for free. Just, even if it like music video for £11 a month is basically for free, but
Yeah. Yeah.
at least it's like something in there. So keep your net wide and yeah, just try and keep the income coming in where you can in other areas and do the stuff you love doing on the side at night whenever you get some time.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important. Yeah.
I
And
think that's
yeah,
really sound advice. We shouldn't put all our eggs in one basket, and multiple streams of income is so important as a freelance creator because you never know when one is going to dry up. Like a recession could hit tomorrow, and then you gotta figure out a way to survive. And if you only have one skill, it's gonna be tough. What's interesting is like our our careers parallel in some ways in the sense that I also studied animation, but at the end
oh
of the
really?
animation course, I was like, I don't think I can do this. It's too tedious for
Oh,
me. I really enjoy like the
where did you
character.
study?
I studied in India because I grew up in India. It was a brand new course at the time. It was called um, Animation and Multimedia. And so we covered basically
Okay.
animation, filmmaking, journalism. It was like everything stuffed into one course. So I got like bits of everything.
Yeah,
But when I finished studying it, or even while I was studying it, I was like, I don't really like the tediousness of the process. I like the story part and the character part, but that's about it.
yeah,
And
yeah. The actual
like you, I
anime
grew up watching
is
cartoons,
oh,
so it was like that obsession. That's why I wanted to do it. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, then I was like, oh, comic books. I get the best of both worlds, right? I get to create like frames, come up with a character, write a story. So I was like really into that for a while, trying to push into it. But again, in India, it's very hard to get anything out there, at least at the time when I was doing it. And I ended up doing graphic design, getting a job in graphic design, having not studied any of it, learned on the job, learned more in 6 months than my 3 years in college.
yeah.
And then like,
Just like document when you can.
yeah. And then like
Yeah.
illustrating on the side whenever I could, because that was a nice side gig, freelance gig. And it was only when I came to Ireland I could slowly transition into full-time illustration because it's taken as a serious job here versus in India where it's like a side hobby. Like
Yes.
it isn't given the same respect as a career as it is here.
Right, that's a great. It's the path that you're taking, man, and it's like
Yeah.
but it's still
Yeah.
great to have that in that experience in your pocket.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
And
I hugely appreciate the fact that I ended up working in graphic design because it made me a better illustrator.
mm,
As far as like understanding layouts, understanding how I would want to, because I worked as a graphic designer, as an art director.
um,
I then was like, how would I like to receive the files, you know? And so you make the files as easy for them, and then they want to work with you again because you made their jobs and lives easier.
yeah, that's really important. Like just to be a nice, like a nice person to work with is also really
Yeah.
important. To build up. Like if you're an arsehole, they're not going to come back to you again.
Yeah.
Be, like really humble and on time with like
Yeah.
deadlines, and yeah, deliver professionally. Like you say, how would they want to receive the artwork files and stuff? Definitely.
Um, So I want to go back again because you mentioned this a couple of times when you were talking about it, is the feeling of imposter syndrome,
Mm,
because these opportunities presented themselves and then suddenly you were thrown into a whole new audience, a whole new space where
mm.
you were the new guy, you know, and you felt like you didn't fit in and you felt that sense of imposter syndrome. How did you sort of deal with that? What was your approach to pushing past it and
But to be honest, I
the
still
results?
kind of have it
Yeah,
now. I'm not a very confident person in public
right.
spaces, and like, and so now how I guess you just kind of have to deal with it when you're in it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I remember like we were directing a commercial for um, Reddit, um, and we had like this whole studio of animators with different sets going on. There was some stop motion, there was some filming, and just like all these like animators that you respected, and you're trying to like brief them, and it like out of your body you're like, what the hell am I doing? Like, why are they going to listen to me? Do you know
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
Who am I to tell them what to do? And then I kind of, almost in a way, I kind of like, the only way I can really deal with it is almost like, imagine you're
Yeah,
acting
yeah.
this person who knows what they're doing. Do you know what I mean? Like, okay, so what would that person do if they knew what they were doing, and like
Right,
put that
right.
person into this body and try and, how would people, what would they want to hear? What would they expect to hear? And then try and do it like that. Like now, I'm a bit better, but like I go and do events for children, but that's
Mm,
totally out of my comfort zone. I'm not an entertainer. Do you know what I mean? And now,
right.
I'm somebody who's more comfortable drawing behind a desk with some music on in the background, and then suddenly you're in front of like a few hundred kids for like an hour to keep them entertained, and it's like I'm totally out of my comfort zone, and you just, okay, well, let's just put on another hat and just
Mm,
like keep this energy and keep them entertained for an hour, hopefully. And yeah, so there's lots and lots of times when it arrives in my life, and many people that I
mm,
everyone's life really. And I think the way to deal with it is just, I say this to my wife, is just try and take a deep breath and just try and enjoy it,
mm,
like this experience, this new experience, and take something from it. Like, okay, and then like when you're really present in that situation, and you kind of, rather than having all the negative thoughts and the fear,
mm.
just try and focus on what's happening and what good and experience you're going to get from this moment.
Yeah.
I think that really helps. Yeah, helps me a lot, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, from what I'm hearing, or my takeaway from what you're saying is fake it till you make it really works. And then secondly is be present in the moment. Don't overthink it, just enjoy
Yeah.
the moment as it is because that's how we grow and that's how we um, mature in any craft that we have. And the reality is you wouldn't be in the place you are if it wasn't for the hard work you did. And I think sometimes it takes time to make that connection that,
Yeah.
like, oh, I actually did work hard to do all this stuff when I reflect back on all the things that I had to do to get to the place I'm in today, you
Exactly.
know?
It is
And
justified why I'm here, but I still feel
yeah, yeah.
like not like I don't deserve it, you know. So it's a strange. I don't know if I ever will, but we'll see.
I think every illustrator I know or have spoken to has a sense of imposter syndrome in some form or the other. And it's interesting to hear all the different takes on it. I recently was chatting to Don Clark. He's an American, a really prolific illustrator and designer. And he was talking about how, for him, imposter syndrome is a sense of he looks at it as a thing to keep him grateful for the position he's in. And so if he's always grateful for where he's been, the place he's come to, then he's always humble and learning, and his mind is open to new possibilities. And so that imposter syndrome keeps him grounded no matter how high he rises in his career,
Yeah,
which I thought was
that's a
like
great
an interesting take. Yeah.
great way to think of it and interpret it. Definitely,
Yeah.
that's yeah.
So when we look at the span of your career, um, the introduction of social media was happening as your career was evolving.
Mm.
Um, how much of a role did it play when you started versus how much of a role does it play now? How important do you think it is to have a social media presence? Or maybe for you, because it was earlier on before social media got the kind of traction it has now, it's not as, it doesn't play as much of a role in your own personal career.
Right. Social media for me has more been a way to interact with my peers.
Right. Yeah.
I think I joined Twitter in 2011 or something, and I quit it last year. X, whatever it is now.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've really used social media as yeah, great. I really like the sort of communities that it built, and
Mm.
I met a lot of other illustrators, particularly in the children's publishing world, through Twitter. And it was
Yeah.
really nice. It was a really fun way, you know. And it used to be good, but now I don't know if I've profited off really my career through social media. I
Mm.
wouldn't. I don't think of it as that. And if I'm honest, like yeah, I got rid of X last year since Elon
Mm.
Musk has just destroyed it and everything else. And I hate, to be honest, how Instagram is now on videos. I loathe. Again, that used to be a really great way to see and follow other artists, and um, again, like a sort of create a sort of network of
Mm.
artists. And the video thing has just destroyed that again. And so now I'm kind of a bit lost where to go. There's like
Yeah.
Blue Sky, I'm on that, but I'm not on it. And Threads, which just looks like another thing of shit. So I keep off that. And so I'm kind of getting away from it, if I'm honest. I'm
Mm.
retracting from it. And yeah, it's a, it doesn't really benefit me particularly at the moment, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Mm.
Have you seen for yourself, because you said initially it was a great way to be social and meet lots of people, have you then transitioned to creating a sense of community in real life in France or are you do you do it across countries, UK and France? How does that work for you?
We're in the countryside, yeah, an hour south of Paris.
Right.
Uh, we've got a nice sort of network of sort of creative friends. Actually, I know some musicians and like film producer, and yeah, so we got other illustrators. So we've got this quite nice little network. And I was really worried moving
Mm.
to the countryside that there's going to be no one here. But and also when I moved to France, I didn't know any French at all,
Yeah.
and I'm still not excellent at French. I'm still kind of scraped through. And and like I say, I'm not a very uh, like I'm not a very talkative person anyway in English,
Mm.
and so put me in like a French dinner table where they're all like talking politics, and I'm way out my comfort zone. So I struggle a bit, and I get come over to the UK when I can for like events and sort of
Yeah.
stay in touch with other like fellow illustrators and stuff. But yeah, I'm a bit lost in that world, if I'm honest. Yeah,
Mm.
I miss that a lot from the UK because I know there's a great networking and book launches, summer parties, and I miss out.
Mm.
On that. So I'm a bit lonely at times, if I'm honest. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's quite hard. But yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, like from what you said earlier about your career, it seemed like community was a huge part of helping you grow in all aspects of illustration, and then the partnerships that formed through having the communities, like working with Benji and then starting an animation studio. Do you think it's important for illustrators to try and form a sense of community? I mean, because we do work in isolation a lot, so.
I think it's a great idea. Yeah, I think it's a fantastic idea, and like, it's kind of what we had in Monsters Collective, which is the
Mm.
illustration collective I was in, um, like back in sort of 2000, early 2000s, and we used to meet up maybe I don't know once a month or so at the British Museum, and it was a great, we'd just have coffee and draw, and it was a great way to share our knowledge or experiences with different clients. And like, oh, there's this cool exhibition on, we used to go to different exhibitions there, or and then coming up with ideas. We used to love doing
Mm.
like mail outs. Actually, that's actually how I got my first children's book illustration. We did a postcard mail out based on proverbs, different proverbs. So I
Right.
drew the proverb, fish and guests smell after 3 days. So there's a family like fish. And I said, walking away with this big sort of stink coming out. And that landed on the desk of an art director, which got me my first children's book illustration. So yeah, that sense of community is really important. So yeah,
Mm.
if you got people and illustrators around you, hang out. Definitely do. But apparently, Beatrice Alemania, she lives not too far from me, so I'm hoping to try and network with her soon. So I know somebody who knows her. So fingers
Nice.
crossed. There
Yeah.
might, there's more some sort of community to come here one day. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think it's so important to have community. I think especially when you're early in your career, just even figuring out how to price things, learning about licensing, all those little nitty-gritty stuff that you can learn from your peers. And then
Mm.
like the ideation thing, it's so much more. I feel like I'm a lot more productive if I have a buddy I can just bounce a couple of ideas off and then suddenly, oh, that problem I was like fighting over just clicks. Um,
Just
but
that
yeah,
other head to help give you another perspective.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly,
huge help.
exactly. But outside of the challenge of community, we are living in a very challenging age, with the advancement of technology and how things are shaping up. What are what are your thoughts on the whole AI art scene? I mean, we've seen, at least in my career and yours, we've seen how it's gone from physical art to digital art, and now the next rendition is AI art.
Mm.
What are your thoughts? What are your apprehensions? Are you hopeful? Are you pessimistic?
I'm, to be honest, I'm scared of it, if I'm
Okay.
honest. I think it's awful the way it's just been launched. Like this
Mm,
beast has just been thrown into society with no chains, no restrictions,
mm,
and it can potentially utterly destroy the arts community. The whole musicians, filmmakers, models, photographers, illustrators. It can take those jobs away. So I think it's horrendous how much has been thrown into the industry with no thought of what this could do.
mm,
So that's kind of my completely pessimistic view of it. Um, I think yeah, like it it's probably just a moment as well where we learn to
mm,
restrain the beast because it was probably a similar thing when computers were launched. Like my dad was a graphic designer in the 80s when it was all like cut and paste, and loads of guys and women and graphic designers lost their jobs because
mm.
computers replaced what they did. Um, so it does scare me, if I'm honest. Yeah, and I think we need to protect ourselves, and it's a very grey area of how we do that at the moment.
Yeah.
And the you're not an AI fucking artist if you type in a command. That's not being an artist. I'm sorry. All you're doing is plagiarizing different artists' work.
Yeah.
And the joy in art is the creating, it's the process.
Yes.
And if you just type something in and you get an image at the end, there's no human connection in that.
Mm,
It doesn't have a soul. There's nothing really that you connect with by creating that. And that to me is not art. We've been creating art since as long as we could hold a charcoal stick, you know what I mean?
yeah. Yeah.
And I hope that we as humanity can continue that path and
Mm,
don't let AI take that connection of humanity away from us. So yeah, it's a huge thing, and I've not touched Chat GPT. I've not got any of it. I've been staying away from it, and actually, at the moment, I'm just going to be starting a little sabbatical from children's books because I've kind of been non-stop for 10 years or so, and I'm going to make some art purely for me by hand,
mm,
and like because I've not done that for I don't know, you know, just like so I want to completely avoid the technology and just make art with paint, ink, whatever by hand. And that for me is going to be such a rewarding time, I hope, to connect
mm,
back with that fun almost you have as a child, you know, like the looseness you have, the non give a fuck, just experimenting and trying different things. And so that's what I'm hoping. Yeah. So I'm going a completely other way from digital art.
yeah.
Into making stuff with your hand, and that AI can't touch that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's where I'm going.
Have you done that before in the sense, not necessarily just painting, this question of taking breaks or creating personal projects for yourself to help stimulate your art practice? Have you done that, and has that developed into new projects in the future, or what's your experience been with playing with personal projects?
I think, yeah, personal projects are really important. If I'm honest, I've not had much time to do any, and
Right.
because I've been very lucky. The last 10 years, I've gone back to book, basically, apart from in the summertime when I have a few weeks off. And so I do try to sort of have. I used to try and sort of have a few hours on like a Friday just to sort of
Mm,
do something completely different to the projects.
yeah.
And you kind of need it when it's all getting too much, or there's something in me. I have to like paint or draw something else. Like I just for me it's like almost like a meditation. It's an escape.
Yeah.
It's like I know it. It's like if I'm stuck in the project I'm working on, and then like okay, I just have to go and do something else, like completely away from this style of whatever I'm doing. And I find it helps me so much. And I'm not sure it's necessarily I guess it has like, well, like Misha Roscoe, that kind of
Mm.
triggered, if I turn the picture around. This was the original painting that inspired Misha Roscoe. So that
Okay.
was a pleasure. And so, yeah, I was like, oh, I really like this dog drawing. And I
Yeah.
actually originally it was for a pet food design, but it was one of the characters that kind of got lost. And it was only a tiny, like, charcoal drawing. And then I drew it bigger and then this big painting. And so, yeah, like these things can lead to other projects, basically.
Mm.
So, yeah, it's super important as creatives to do that when you can, to just try something else, like put yourself somewhere else. And it's a need, it's a necessity to do it.
Mm.
Just express yourself and try different ways. And I've been just finishing up a book, um, which I'm doing with acrylic paints and pastels,
Wow.
composing Photoshop, but all of the elements are made by hand. And so
Mm.
I wanted to restrict myself what I was able to do, because I'm not a very good artist by hand. Like I'm very, very clumsy, and I can't achieve what I can achieve in the computer in digital art, by handmade painting. But I was like, you know what, I'm going to launch into this project, which was a ridiculous idea, but I'm going to try and do it all by hand.
Yeah.
I've loved it, like getting the paints out, getting pastels out, experimenting. I've, sorry to the trees, but I've used so much paper just trying different things, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's been really. I've learned so much from it, and yeah, it's been really a great project to do, actually. So yeah, just keep experimenting, and I think that's what um, keeps you interested as an artist, is to
Mm.
try different things. Go experiment and try different avenues, different styles, and yeah, it is what pushes us on.
Yeah. I like 100% agree. I think every time I have created a personal project, it has developed into something more, or I've been hired to do that thing that I was just playing with. And it also keeps you from burning out because, that practice of, like I'm not doing the same repetitive task over and over again. This is a place where I can play without any restrictions, without any client telling me what to do. I can make up my own rules and just explore. And I think that sharpens our like technical skills. If we're working digitally, now you're working with a physical paint, then it it just makes us better artists overall.
Mm. Absolutely, absolutely. It's the stimulus we need, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're coming to a close of our interview, and there's two more questions I like to ask. The first one is if there was one piece of advice you could give the next generation of illustrators, what would that advice be?
The next generation of illustrators.
Yeah.
Um, keep keep drawing with your hands. Keep experimenting, and don't, yeah, like I said earlier on, just don't pigeonhole yourself in one design area. Don't just say I'm only interested in children's book. Just don't look at just children's books. Um, Look at art. I get a lot of inspiration now from nature. Just like walking out into nature, I get inspiration from music. So draw inspiration from everything. Like
Mm,
don't look at children's books to inspire your children's books. Look at video games. Look at films. Expand your wealth of reference and
mm,
inspiration, and these things all feed back into you, and you don't know when you're going to need to draw on them. Like
yeah.
film has a big inspiration on the way I compose an image. But you interpret it in different ways. So yeah, keep your net wide. Say yes to different projects in different medias, and keep drawing and keep developing. Off AI.
That's well said. Well said. And for the last question that I like to ask all my guests is, what does the word fruitful mean to you?
Oof, the word fruitful. Well, I'm thinking a fruitful life is a life of abundance and experience, and keeping your mind open to different things
Mm,
and different cultures, and take it all in. Don't just put yourself in one bracket. I think it's all about just experiencing the joys and whatever life brings at you.
lovely. That's really lovely. Hey, thank you all for listening to this episode of The Fruitful Life. I hope you walk away with some nuggets of wisdom. If you did, please do me a favor and leave a rating and a comment to tell me what you think of the show. Also, consider telling a friend that might like it. As always, be true, be you, stay fruitful.